In this brief demonstration, we'll take a look at the RLO that we've developed for COMPSCI 220 programming methodology, which is focused on mental models. We'll take a look at what mental models are very briefly to give some background, then we'll take a look at the RLO we developed, and finally we'll take a look at the feedback we've received from students. Before we take a look at our RLO, let's quickly review what we mean by mental models in the context of 220. Here you can see an exam that we gave in the fall of 2024. First, you can see that students are given 9 lines of code. Then they're asked to write in English explanations for what happens in each line of code. They're asked to explain what closures objects are created and what values are computed, modified, or printed, and finally when objects are no longer accessible in the memory. The motivation for our RLO specifically was that students did not have enough resources to study this material and become proficient with it. Additionally, there were no homeworks available to students to practice this material, which was another reason we felt we needed a specific resource that students could fall back on. A major difficulty is that this topic usually encapsulates everything else they also learn in 220. For example, here in this mental models question, you can see that it focuses on streams, which is another topic focused on in the class. Here you can see the website we're using in 220. This website houses the homework and discussion materials as well, so students are already familiar with this resource. We can see that our RLO focuses on 9 key topics that are important in 220. Objects and references, assigned by value, function behavior with objects, functions as first-class citizens, higher-order functions, closures and scope, avoiding recomputations with closures, IIFE, and lexical scope. The basic idea behind our project is that students would use this primer as review or before a lab so that they're ready to go. Let's take a look at the first section, objects and references here. First, and this goes for all the sections, there's a brief explanation of what this topic is about. The second part, which makes this interactive, is this code visualizer that we've built. You can see that there's a number of lines of code, and when you hover over the lines, there's a detailed explanation about what happens in the line of code. The idea is that students can write on paper what they think happens and then check their answers. For each section, there are a number of different examples that start out simple and then get more complicated. As you can see, we have a bunch of sections that have these basic things, and as the topics get more complicated, the explanations also get more complicated. Since mental models spans almost all the concepts covered in 220, we wanted to make sure that these sections are easily digestible and separate from each other so that students can target only their weak areas. Finally, let's take a quick look at what students thought about this RLO. We can see that most students thought this was clear and understandable. They were able to hover to see the explanations and they thought that was valuable. Most of them did not care for a voiceover feature, however. We can also see that they felt the instructions were easy to follow, and almost all of them felt comfortable with the topics after using the RLO. In the individual feedback parts, they left us some good details to improve our RLO, which we've already implemented.